Thank you, Siri. And thank you to CFRI. And this is Doug's in My Place. You are our tribe. You are our family. And every time we come, every year, it's like, oh my gosh, touching into a root of love and friendship. And we've all seen each other go through so many things. And it is such a deep and warm place to come and a community to be a part of. And to continue on from the last presentation that we had with Nick Kelly, who gave a wonderful and stirring presentation. He talked about passion. And he talked about passion and purpose and product. So I thought, well, I'm just going to introduce my book as part of my passion. And it was my passion for my life. It was my passion for my daughter and my passion for my family, that one day the muse hit me and it said, it's time to write. And many people had said that Anna's story, my daughter Anna, is a miraculous person, and she's had a miraculous life, and that her story needed to be told. And so that was my purpose. I have my passion, my love, and my purpose was to write this book. And I followed it through, and now I have the product. And I think, Nick, that's what you were talking about. And so my book is called Love, Courage, and Miracles. And when I started to want to write this book, I talked to Dr. Weil. This is a picture of me and Dr. Weil. Dr. David Weil was Anna's lung transplant physician. But not only that, he also was the first director of the adult CF Center at Stanford and was her first adult doctor with cystic fibrosis. Because when Anna became 20, in her early 20s, that was when it was recognized that this is no longer a pediatric disease. And centers were looking for physicians to be able to be adult doctors. And patients were transferring from children's hospitals to adult hospitals. And that's when we met Dr. Weil. So Dr. Weil followed Anna through her 20s with cystic fibrosis. And then he was also the director of the Lung Transplant Center at Stanford. And he followed her through her transplant when she was 29 years old. So I really wanted to acknowledge Dr. Weil. When it was time to write the book, I called him and I said, I need to write this book about Anna, and I wanted your support. And one of the other reasons I went to him is because he wrote his memoir about his experience of being a transplant physician. That book is called Exhale. It's an amazing book about his experience being the head of the Lung Transplant Center at Stanford. And he encouraged me. And he said to me, he said, yes, Anna's story needs to be told. And he said, and you know what else? I really need to read about families who go through transplant. I want to know what their experience is too. So he gave me permission for the whole story. And he said, send me whatever you write. And I did. Every time I wrote a chapter, I sent it to him. And he was just like, he was the support for me. The other person who was a big support for me was Sue Landgraf. And many of you here know Sue. Sue was the executive director of CFRI before Siri. And Sue and Siri were very, very close friends and steering the ship together. And Sue retired, and she lives in a small town where Doug and I live, in the foothills in Murphys. And so when I was going to write the book, Sue said, I'll help you, and which was an amazing thing. Sue read everything that I wrote, a million. She kept reading it over and over. I thought, you just have to be so bored by now, but she just kept supporting me, and it was really quite wonderful. I'm very grateful to Sue. So my book is called Love, Courage, and Miracles, and I didn't title it until the book was completed. And I had a few titles that I was thinking of that were kind of about the fact that in Anna's life, we've experienced a lot of miraculous things, of her defying death, and just that life was magic. And we had a lot of magical experiences. And so I was thinking of that. And then I called Sue, and I had her come over, and we sat, and I said, I want to identify what the real feelings of this book are. What is it? What are the qualities? And we came up that it was about the love of our family, Anna's love of life, the courage to be a family, to deal with cystic fibrosis and transplant, and Anna's amazing courage to go through absolutely everything that she's gone through and to come out on the other side as the most incredible being. And miracles. And we had many miracles. In the book, I define what I believe a miracle is. And it's really an amazing event that happens that gives you hope. So after the book, well, as I was finishing the book, I realized that the story was really in 3 parts. There was part 1, which was from the beginning when Anna was born. Even before that, I introduced who I am as a woman, and what was important in my life before I ever met Doug, before I had Anna, that I was very interested in my spiritual life. And I was interested in a spiritual path, whatever that meant. I didn't really quite know. And so that's, and then Anna's being born, and Anna's diagnosis, and her as a child, leading up to her being 29 years old, and at the end of her cystic fibrosis lungs when she needed a transplant. And that part is a story of miracles. Part 2 is transplant and recovery. And it's the story of her waiting for her lungs and receiving them and her recovery. And it's a story of courage. And I felt that it was important to be able to share what that experience was like, to be waiting for lungs. It's a very unique surgery that you are dependent upon someone losing their life for your life to continue on. It's really a very remarkable place to be, and involves a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. I wanted to share what Anna and I and my family went through at that time. Part 3 is about living the gift. And Anna had a successful lung transplant. And that meant she had a whole new life. And it was like a reincarnation. Anna no longer had to worry about her cystic fibrosis lungs. And she took the ball and ran with it. And she has done things that were beyond any imagining of her as a child with cystic fibrosis. She fully, and this is what I see in all people with CF, that they live their life to the fullest. And that's what Anna has done. And that part is about a story of love. So I would like to, this is another part I was going to share with you, was also that in the book with these 3 parts, there's also 3 threads. And there's the thread of me as a mother, me as a woman who is searching for my spiritual ground of what is this life about? How can I find a life of meaning? There's me as the mother who has to take care of this child and have this family while battling cystic fibrosis and trying to keep my daughter living. And then there is a third thread, which is Anna's story. And this is a little picture of Anna and me before cystic fibrosis. We didn't even know, we had no idea what that was, and we were really quite innocent. And Anna's motto as a child was, "Don't let your fears stand in the way of your dreams." And she knew that deep inside from a very young age. So it's these three things that go through the book. So I'd love to be able to read a little bit to you. So it's a little bit later in the evening, so this is kind of story time, story hour. And I'd like to do a few, read a few passages, and then happy to answer questions. So this passage is from part 1 and in the beginning, and this is chapter 4, Becoming a CF Family. And this picture is a picture of Anna when she was on a ventilator for 5 weeks when she was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. It took them 2 weeks to finally diagnose her. And when they did, we didn't know if she would ever come off that ventilator. But she did, and she came home. And then we had to become a CF family. On a spring day in 1983, shortly after her release from the hospital, I was walking with Anna in a stroller, enjoying the beautiful sunny weather in the unfamiliar neighborhood of mid-century homes where we had just relocated. Anna's body was healing from the severe pneumonia that could have taken her. She had lost so much muscle strength that she could not walk independently due to weeks in the hospital bed. No longer listening to the constant beeps of life-saving machines or hanging on to every word for clues to tell me if she would ever come home, I was beginning a new normal that was far from normal for a young mother. I was forever changed. My new understanding that life can dramatically change in a moment colored my world, and grief complicated my life in ways I never expected. Mindfully stepping down the street, one foot after the other, I pushed the blue umbrella stroller carrying my complicated child. It was time to catch my breath and find secure footing in my changing world with new expectations of how I was to be a mother. Questions of who I now was were whirling in my head. After walking a few blocks, I slowed my pace to a halt with tears for losing my life as I knew it. Looking around to see if I was alone and no one else could hear me, I asked out loud, how can I do this? How can I be a mother of a child who will die within a few years? Asking this question to my deepest inner places, soul, spirit, and the whole neighborhood, I received a remarkably clear answer. A voice responded within hearing distance of my inner mind. If she lives a short life, there will be many blessings. If she lives a long life, there will be many blessings. They are both the same. The words resonated profoundly, but how could they both be the same? I knew then this parenting journey would be the teaching of a lifetime. Here was the most precarious path we could be on. Doug and I loved caring for our precious daughter, who had miraculously survived a terrible onslaught of illness, but it was not over. The journey had just begun. We had to live not knowing what further winds and storms would blow through our lives. The message was clear. To survive, I had to take each step not knowing what was to be, while looking for the positive and finding gifts of spirit. We moved to Sunnyvale, close to Doug's work, just days before my encounter with this crucial inner message. I was relieved not to feel isolated. If something went wrong, I had the support I needed within minutes. That was a blessing I could count on. We were nervous and unsure about our new charter to parent a young child with little hope for a future. With no time to get ready, we had to immediately begin the regimen that all CF families had to participate in if there was any hope of staving off more of its ravages. I had bottles of pills lined up on the kitchen counter, medicines in the refrigerator, and vials of bronchodilators ready for every respiratory treatment. I was starting this new path with so much to learn, and this new inner guidance telling me that there would be blessings no matter what. It was up to me to get the job done, to care for Anna, and to carve out a life of meaning and hope in what at first appeared to be a family life of exhaustion and fear. And that voice and those words resonated in me year after year after year, when Doug and I didn't know how long Anna was going to live. Through the ups and downs, it was always, there will be blessings, there will be wonderful things. It's not all the grief, it's not all the sadness. I'm going to have a sip of tea before I continue reading to you. So, as time went on and we lived a life of a CF family, we came to a place where Anna's CF lungs were just done. And she was listed for a transplant at Stanford. This is a picture of Anna and her sister Sarah and me and Doug with our shirts, Anna Banana Bunch shirts that Anna had made for hundreds of people wore these shirts to support Anna during her wait. And she waited 119 days. And finally the call came, and we were there in the middle of the night. And this picture was taken before she was rolled off to the surgical theater. So this is from part 2, the beginning of part 2, chapter 11, called Blogging. And, well, here, I'll just start reading. Every day while waiting for Anna's transplant miracle, I opened my computer to record my thoughts and share our experiences. We had friends from many areas of our lives who wanted updates on Anna's health status and to know when she would get the call. That is when the transplant surgeon would call Anna to tell her they had lungs for her. Sitting with my morning coffee before heading to Anna's condo or my evening glass of wine, I wrote. While taking care of Anna, there was little time to spend with friends or even Doug to process my complex emotions. Blogging and writing was a way to not feel alone and process our journey. Anna also wrote when she had enough energy or something significant happened. We felt connected to our outer world by getting it on the screen and selecting post. Our collection of writings gave immediacy to our feelings and an invitation to whoever wanted to travel with us. It was a window into that tender pre-transplant time when it was unknown if we were in for a sprint or a marathon before Anna's perfect lungs arrived. Anna and I decided to continue to blog no matter when that would be. Anna began her lung transplant evaluation in June 2010. She had to undergo a week of testing in the first part of the process. It was grueling for someone with low oxygen levels. It felt in itself like a marathon to endure. Transplantation requires knowing the patient's overall health in fine detail. Each day, we would drive up to Stanford, and I would get one of the available wheelchairs for Anna so I could wheel her to each appointment in the rigorous schedule. We had to preserve as much of her energy as possible. It was exhausting for me, too. Our evaluation week included lunches and strolls around the campus near the hospital between appointments. Once I wheeled Anna to the art museum. It was closed. But outside was a permanent Rodin sculpture garden exhibit of his famous Gates of Hell, other human figures, and exaggerated body parts on pedestals. And if you stay at Stanford, you've probably seen this in the museum. Our minds were overwhelmed with our tasks to get to transplant, so everything around us looked like an advertisement for organ donation. Looking over the field of artful carnage sent us into uproarious laughter, lightening our emotional weight. We imagined the heads, arms, hands, and torsos in the garden were waiting for recipients to finish their evaluations. We wished it could be so easy to simply pick our needed body parts out of the garden. Lunches and dinners came from local restaurants, as we had no time to cook. Twice we had Chinese food with the fortune cookies that also lifted our spirits. One of the fortunes for Anna foretold, long life with the blessings of family and friends is yours. I told her, you chose that cookie. It could have been mine, but no, it was yours. And we both smiled, and she folded it safely into her wallet. The week of testing ended with another Chinese dinner takeout eaten at Anna's so we could collapse. Before leaving for my apartment to spend the night, I chose one of 3 fortune cookies wrapped in their cellophane. It said, "You will soon witness a miracle." I stood there dumbfounded. My blog was called Miracle on Order. What better way to be told it was about to arrive than from the mail of a fortune cookie? At that point, Anna and I swore not to open any more fortune cookies. We were delighted to have these. The unseen magical world that appeared to us in the fortune cookies seemed to be in order and our favor. Still, the importance of that week was about the physical world and Anna's body. That was all in order too. She was in the window. The window is where a patient is sick enough to need a transplant and well enough to heal from it and thrive. That is where Anna was, and there was nothing to disqualify her from the surgery. They knew everything about her body. There were no secrets left. And so that started our waiting. Oops, let's see. No, that's the one. Yep. So I wanted to be able to read a little to you of Anna's writing, because I was able to fold in not only my experience and my words, but also Anna's. And Anna did write a blog. I was able to include some of her blog writings, but also asked her to do some writing for different experiences that she had, which she did. And this passage is from part 2 and her transplant and recovery. In this chapter, chapter 16, I share about my experience of her being launched after her recovery, starting her new life. And the other section of this chapter is something that she wrote, and it's now on my own. This is Anna. It was over 3 months since my transplant. Waking up to an empty house with 2 kitties, one at my feet and the other attempting to snuggle my face. I didn't have plans for the day. I was alone. and tempted to find someone to hang out with, but I decided to spend time alone. I needed to get to know who I was without CF lungs. John was off snowboarding, and my mom had happily returned home with Dad. I sat on the couch, relaxing, drinking my coffee, and watching million-dollar listings on Bravo, one of my guilty pleasures. There were no nebulizers, coughing, or pounding on my back, only the delicious sound of sipping my coffee and the musings of TV real estate agents. It was the beginning of my next chapter. I saw how I was a different person in so many ways. I was sipping coffee, for crying out loud. This early morning activity would have never happened before. I hated coffee. Did my donor love coffee? I was told after my surgery that my donor was a 30-something woman, and this was all I knew about her. Was I learning more about her through the changes in me? Did she give me her preference so that I would never forget her? There were so many questions I wanted to answer as I moved forward in my life. My new coffee habits started on Christmas, 2 days after leaving the hospital. We gave my dad an espresso maker for his present that morning. As he made the first few cups, the aroma filled the apartment. Sitting on my bed, uncomfortable and swollen, the coffee called me. In his flannel pajamas, Dad handed me a small porcelain coffee cup filled with a fresh brew, a pour of steamed milk, and a sprinkle of cinnamon. I held that cup like the greatest gift I had ever received. Precious and warm in my hand, it represented my life being saved and a celebratory toast to being alive. I no longer had an O2 cannula in my nose and could smell the dark rind, feel the smooth steamed milk on my tongue, and taste the spice of cinnamon as it slipped down my throat. This sensual pleasure marked the beginning of a new journey in my life. I had made it through the greatest challenges and defeated death. Strangely, that cup gave me a happiness that seemed to have hitchhiked a ride along with my new lungs. My daily cup still reminds me again and again of that moment. I will never tire of my coffee habit. I was in such a new place that I didn't have much to report to my friends. Things were just simply good. I still had to deal with blood levels, small changes in medicine doses, and wait for my scar to finish healing. I had a divot in my chest that I hoped would fill in, but never did. It reminds me of my vulnerability and power to overcome the odds. My life changed dramatically in countless ways, including my medical identity. Some people think you are fine if you remove the diseased lungs and life goes on. Well, not exactly. I have to say, we transplant patients have so much to do, worry about, and take numerous medications, but it is so worth it. My life now has possibilities that are beyond my imagination. At the beginning of my new freedom, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had lots of ideas. I wanted to help people, find a way to make money, and live an exciting life. The ideas ranged from working with girls with eating disorders, getting into real estate, starting my signature program, making food for transplant families, or simply being a homemaker. I could see all of these possibilities, and I wanted to start moving in a direction. I never liked being stagnant without goals and reasons for moving forward, even with my medical disabilities. I had proven myself by graduating from Santa Clara with 2 degrees and what I had just done, a successful lung transplant. I did not want to waste this chance to live fully. I knew it would take time for things to come to fruition, but I was impatient. This chapter in my life was going to be about playing hard, but it had been so long since I felt well that I didn't know how to initiate adventures. I had a mental block because I had always lived an unpredictable life and couldn't plan. I wanted to get off the couch and be adventurous. It was up to me to open the doors, create opportunities, use my imagination to live the life I was destined to live and fulfill my fortune cookie fortune by visiting exotic places. I had to maintain my fitness to get stronger and stronger all by myself. I had already watched other friends with CF do this by attending the Transplant Games of America. The games were competitive athletic events designed to offer transplant patients all levels of competition. I was unsure of how fit I could become, and I wondered if I could ever be successful swimmer again. I had not been a big exerciser since my miracle days of swimming championships. So the first step forward was to get fit and become stronger with the games as my goal. I would gather all the strength, confidence, and will I could muster and get my ass to the gym. No more couch potato. And in this, Anna refers to competitive swimming, which you have to read the book in order to understand why she put that there and what happened when she was a child. So to read just a little bit more so you can have a flavor. After transplant, it took a while for all of us in the family to heal and to find that we had a new life, as well as Anna having a new life. And I really wanted to give back to the community because there was so much goodness and there were blessings every day, just like that voice had said to me. And I had an idea that it would be wonderful for mothers to take a break, to develop friendships together, and to have a little retreat and learn about how to relieve their stress and to receive more support. And it was Sue Landgraf, who was his executive director at that time, and she agreed, and we moved forward with Embrace. I would just want to read a short little thing about Embrace. And the first meeting of Embrace was me, and I invited my other mom friend, Darlene Batchelder, to address the 30 women who had come that evening. We took turns telling our stories and how that moment of truth that our children had the disease became a doorway. We were forced to step into an unwanted and scary world. It was at that moment when we learned about the dangers to our children's health and the prognosis for a very short life that our world, as we had known it, crumbled. Our dreams, expectations, and hearts were broken, and we had to pick up the pieces. We became mothers who had to sharpen our advocacy skills, build our courage, and find ourselves. We both began to feel a growing maternal fierceness, and that's me and Darlene, that would not let anything get in the way of us doing all we needed to save our children. The women who sat before us all had children with the same disease and had gone through the same portal. Still, their children were of all ages, from newborn into adulthood, and had varied levels of illness. A few who came had already lost their children. They came from different areas of the country for support and community. After Darlene and I told our diagnosis stories, we invited each of the women to pair up with another mom they did not know to tell their stories. In this way, the room became a chapel filled with sacred doorways, open hearts, spirit connections, and hands touching each other. Tears cleansed the group. We gathered the mothers into a circle where Darlene and I took turns reading a poem, setting the tone for the weekend and our ritual bonding. Every year, this adopted poem, The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer, is read aloud as if it is our creed. To personalize the poem for our group, we added a last paragraph, and this is it. And for my sisters, you mothers of CF children, I want to know if you accept and embrace this journey, our journey, the CF journey. You have been invited to meet this most difficult of challenges. I want to know if you can be honest and true, reaching out to each other, reaching into yourself as you meet the pain and sorrow and the joy and the blessings of having these very perfect children. After reading this powerful poem, we celebrated being together in sisterhood with a ritual of sharing purple shawl-like scarves placed on each other's necks. 30 women stood silently in a circle as the scarves were placed over their heads, one after the other. And we're still doing it every year, and it's wonderful. And this is a picture of me and Anna in Australia, the last picture that was taken of us together. She lives in Australia. When she was a little child, Doug and I ever thought that our child would live to be 43 years old and live in Australia? Never. And this chapter is called, is chapter 25, and it's in part 3 about her living the gift. And this chapter is called, Who Could Ever Have Imagined? The sadness, pain, and chronic sorrow of the potential loss of my daughter has stopped me in my tracks for 40 years. I feel a familiar rush of worry at the arrival of every storm that announces yet another threat. It grabs my heart. Meanwhile, we have learned not to have the storm be our focus. Doug and I are busy with our lives, engaged, lifting up, seeing the light, touching love, admiring beauty, and loving life. Anna has gone into therapy for her trauma due to her continual hospitalizations. She is trying to heal and work through the pain that has been the price for her extraordinary life. The number of times she has had to enter the hospital in Melbourne and the mounting number of problems associated with her immune suppression has made her more vulnerable. She is learning about honoring all her feelings, acceptance, gratitude, and continuing to move forward. It is tough. Even so, sitting together in her kitchen, having breakfast during our visit, Anna told me, "Mom, I'm just an ordinary person sitting here eating my oatmeal." And my response was, "Anna, you are not an ordinary person. You have the courage of a lion with the tenacity, determination, will, spirit, intuition, power, and love of an extraordinary person. And besides, who could ever have imagined your life?" Reflecting on how she made it through her most recent difficult times, Anna told me, "Mom, I'm brave because I choose to go into the darkness with only a flashlight to find my path. There is no already paved yellow brick road. I find my way with my choices and effort to create miracles. I find rainbows in the rain and stars in the night sky with my gratitude." The query, who could ever have imagined long ago what has happened in our lives as a result of an intrepid CF warrior living with us as our daughter, leads one to the next question. What more is there to come? We simply do not know, but we step forward with love, courage, and the hope for more miracles. And Anna has been very sick this year. She has been trying to heal from a terrible, life-threatening ulcer, and she's making progress, and it's amazing. And she's been in the hospital most of the year, and the courage and determination it has taken for her to continue on and to do all that she needs to do without any complaining. She is amazing, and she's learned to just live in this moment of life. And so we still don't know. More miracles are going to come for Anna, and we're looking forward to them. So having this experience of sharing this book and sharing it with my friends and other people, I've received such a wonderful, open, warm reception. It has been really gratifying. This is a quote from Dr. Moss. So I write about Dr. Moss and tell about our relationship in the book also. He was her pediatric physician. Living this life and experiencing cystic fibrosis and all of the challenges forces us to go deep inside of ourselves and look for truth, look for blessings. And then now I've got to do promotion. And that's why I'm here. And so I narrated the book. It is now an audiobook. And just yesterday, it was on Audible. Yay. It's on Audible, on Google Play, Spotify, Barnes & Noble. So wherever, if you enjoy a audiobook, I did not plan to do the narration, but when it was time, and I knew I wanted an audiobook because I love audiobooks, and they sent me some samples of different people reading the story, and I went, oh, no, it's got to be me. So I found this wonderful person who had this beautiful music recording studio up in the foothills, and Nicholas, and he did all of the technical recording while I read. It was wonderful. And so I need to do readings, and I need to offer the book, and I need to ask the people buy the book, and I need to be shameless about that and say, please buy my book. And if you have a book club, that it may be a book that you want to have for your book club. And for those people who are out in the virtual world, who may be listening to this or after it's recorded and people may want to listen, there's a nice little QR code there, and you just put your phone right up to it, and you'll go to my book website and it'll say order here. Then you click there and you'll go straight to Amazon, and you can have a paperback, ebook, or an audiobook right then and there. I mean, like now. It's amazing. So while I'm here at the conference, I have a table right out there, and I brought lots of books. And I would love to sell my books to you, and I'd love for you to share them. And I'd love it if you knew of other opportunities for me to be able to share Anna's story and our story. And it's been an amazing, incredible life that we would never change. It's been filled with love and community and blessings and miracles and amazing people. The best people in the world are CFRI people. And so I'd like to ask if anybody wants to have a discussion or ask questions.